Hi everyone, I'm Emily from Nouse, and today I'm with Kallum Taylor, who is UC President from 2012 to 2014 and is now Labour Holgate Councillor and NIFIC Coordinator for SASH. So hi, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Emily. Blimey, it feels like a long time ago. So I've been in York now since 2009 when I came here for uni, originally from a town called Widnes near Liverpool. I fell in love with York when I came here, and that's why I'm still here now. As you say, 2 years as USU president. Before that, I was the chair of Vanbrugh JCRC. I'm not sure if you still call them JCRCs. And before that, I was an ENTS rep, and all the while studying. So I did politics for international relations. And then after all of that, I decided York was best. There are fewer jobs available up here than down in London or whatever, but I thought the quality of life element had just as much weight. And years later, I work for a homelessness charity that covers North Yorkshire and East Yorkshire called SASH. And I'm a city councillor for the Holgate part of York, which is demanding but great.
Oh, that's brilliant. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your time spent as UC President?
Yeah, so it was a wild ride. I won't lie, it was work hard, play hard. That's the nature of SUs. There's a lot of politics there, but it's an incredibly sort of social community, which is part of the beauty of it all, I think. But on a more serious level, tuition fees have just been trebled up to 9k in my first year as president. So all of a sudden, it was like, we've got a serious job to do. There was immense political room to start speaking up for students, because all of a sudden they were paying a lot more, but the experience they were getting was very similar to the previous year. And the uni would take a while to catch up with that sense of delivering value for money under the new regime. So we had a lot of campaigns, did stuff with the city council, which was really positive. I'm not sure what questions you're going to ask me later, so I won't go into detail on anything unless a question covers it. But it was just a mad, busy 2 years, lots of campaigns, too many issues to deal with for the time that we had. But we were very successful too, and we were quite confrontational with the university. I felt like we had to be for them to take us seriously. And the whole approach was, USU should not be a middleman between the university and the students. It should be in the students' corner. And then whatever compromise is reached by virtue of that. And you meet in the middle rather than starting in the middle in the first place. But yeah, we loved it. It was great. It was intense and it was tiring, but it was great.
No, I completely agree with you. What was your proudest achievement then in terms of working with the university and compromising with them?
So I think something I look back on fondly was it was a totally sort of rushed campaign. It was something no one could plan for. So when tuition fees were trebled, one of the sorts of sweeteners that the coalition government at the time offered was something called the National Scholarship Programme, which is basically bursaries for, would-be students from less well-off backgrounds. And that was one of the things they put on the table to make the increase in fees a little bit more palatable. And then at very short notice, the coalition government cut that significantly. And it was going to impact on York University students to the tune of £700,000. And we were told this in a meeting, like a day or two after the announcement. And it was very much a crisis meeting because it impacted on a lot of the uni's widening participation efforts. And there were options on this paper, and it was all around spending less money in a smarter way, a lot less money in a smarter way. But there was one option on there, which was for the university to plug that funding gap that year. And in the meeting, I said, why aren't we giving this serious consideration? Because in the meeting, it wasn't being given that consideration. And we were told that that option was there simply to illustrate the scale of the challenge. So I left that meeting thinking that's not good enough. And the staff members in the meeting said, you're welcome to lobby the Vice-Chancellor on the matter. So we did. And we ran a short notice blast campaign called Plug the Gap. And it was like a hashtag. Students made memes. So you had like hashtag Hug the Gap. And there were pictures of pugs doing the rounds. But it consisted of students writing letters to the senior management team of the uni, basically saying how important it was that York plugged that gap and helped those students that were coming into the uni from less well-off backgrounds, because the issue was they'd already applied to York on the assumption that this money was going to be there, and then it was pulled after. And after 2 weeks of intense lobbying, we got a call from the Vice-Chancellor's office to say that they would plug that gap by 50%, which was, you know, around £350,000. And we were delighted with that, because initially there weren't going to be any extra plugging the gap at all with even an extra pound. So, you know, students who come to the uni would have benefited from that. I wouldn't have been there at the time that they would have benefited from that. But it's the type of change that would have put food on students' tables, made them feel more comfortable whilst at uni, and just kept the wolves away, really, because it is hard for students who come from backgrounds where university just isn't really a thing. There were lots of other things, but that was a real big one. And to be honest with you, Emily, I didn't think the uni would budge. So we had an approach which was, if you want a bicycle, ask for a helicopter. And we got something, yeah, and we got something in between the two there.
That's a really good motto for like future UC presidents, to be honest. It does remind me, while you were saying all that, I was thinking, it's kind of a similar situation for current and future UC presidents with the pandemic. Like, we've all seen how students have been ignored and they're not getting refunds. Do you have any, like, maybe advice for how anyone could handle that situation? I know it's completely new for you as well, but
yeah, so it's I don't envy the current student union officers. This is a totally unheard of, unprecedented situation. I just think, I don't know, in a way, the best thing future SABs could do is, you know, stick to the basics. What are the core issues? People are paying money, they're paying rent, they can't actually experience the benefit of that, and push and push and push to get as many concessions as possible, or as many compensatory measures as possible. You've got to start from the assumption that you will not get everything you want, but you've also got to start on the assumption that if you don't push and you don't try, you'll get absolutely nothing. And students aren't being listened to. I think the issues we're facing now, and the issue students are facing now, is that under this new higher fees regime, when you can't actually enjoy that student experience in the normal way, it leaves a massive gap. I mean, the money that people are paying, if it was publicly funded, I think there'd be a lot less resentment and a lot less upset. But now under the new regime, student unions have got to fight and stand up for the members and not be shy about it in any way. And you can do that without shouting and swearing. You can do it with persistent lobbying and not being afraid. You know, whoever gets elected this year and in future years, they're in that position for a reason, and they get given time and respect, and they should use it. And if they pick up some wins for students on the way, then brilliant. If they don't, then it's a waste of time. Sorry.
do you think being UC president has changed your outlook in your current job? Because I know you already work in politics.
God, yeah, probably. Looking back, I know I've just lectured on how you don't have to shout all the time to get your own way. Back then, I was pretty volatile. I wasn't as extreme as many people, but we were quite sort of we went backwards in coming forward, to put it that way. And I think now I've adjusted my approach slightly. I'm a little bit more calm. I look back on a few meetings where I feel like some of the university management were probably quite tolerant of me, and I didn't realise it at the time. But another thing that's played on my mind is, and it's because of the president role, is the importance of the university to the city. And we were starting to bring the two together, along with York St John Union and York College Union and Askham Bryan Student Union. We were starting to bring all of that together, and there was better working with landlords and the council. And that's faded a bit because of a lot of the cuts that have come in. A lot of those organisations have had to go back into their own areas, and that support isn't there to bring them together. But it's reminded me of the importance of the student body. We need strong universities. Students are an asset to the city. Not enough people in York, I think, quite get that, because they just see more and more student housing popping up and less homes for families. And that is a problem, and it needs managing. But as a city, we do not sell the benefits of the universities and students anywhere near as much as we should.
No, I mean, there was all that with the Tory MP blaming students and everything. So I can totally see where you're coming from with that. You've talked about being a little bit volatile while you were student president. So if you could go back in time and give yourself like one piece of advice, what would it be?
Probably, I would probably say to just have a few moments of calm before big decisions or big meetings. It felt like every hour was manic, and I probably could have managed my time a bit better to create that space. So almost every meeting felt like a battle, and it didn't need to be most of the time. So if I could manage my time a bit better, create that space to really think things through, I might have got the same results, but in a less stressful way.
No, that's brilliant. I kind of want to touch upon your actual campaign just briefly, just because I'm aware you had kind of an issue with Special K brand. Do you want to explain that a little bit further?
Well, it was no issue for me. We wanted to do something that would be easy to remember, and people put the cardboard all over campus. I don't know if you can still do that, but it used to happen then. Showing my age there, I think. And we didn't want any slogans dotted around. We just thought, can we get a symbol when people look at it, they know what it means, like the Facebook logo. And we just played on the fact that my mum spelt my name wrong when I was born, and it was Kallum with a K rather than C. And we just thought we'd go with Special K, and we did have a slogan. It was something like, it was "Show York the way, vote Special K." And we had red Ks all over campus, and I walked around in a big giant cereal box. And then apparently somebody from student media contacted Kellogg's to say, do you know this guy's using your logo? Apparently they did, and they were happy with that. And then they sent me, I think it was 26 boxes of cereal, Special K. So that was Mother's Day presents sorted out quite quickly, and then yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was interesting that someone wanted to ring Kellogg's to sort of let them know that we were doing it, but it was nice when they were happy with it. Probably increased their brand awareness a little bit. But it was a good campaign. It was absolutely exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. But I think, when you're talking about the votes you need to get, you've got to put the graft in. Campus is big and you've got thousands of students. But yeah, it was worth it.
Brilliant. Do you have any advice for people like you that will be wanting to make a campaign that's very memorable? I'll try that again. That's very noticeable. Do you have any advice on how to do that?
I guess I don't know what the rules are now, but I think what I'd say is have a good team. You need a core team of 5 or 6 people that you can bank on, because they'll need to keep you motivated. You need someone to rant to panic to celebrate with, and aside from that sort of personal care element, you also need feet on the ground. So one of the things we did was, as soon as campaigning officially began, we had little clusters of people on both campuses work in particular areas. So by, I don't know, after 3 or 4 hours had passed, we had our logo everywhere, rather than starting in one place and moving across. And then obviously, if you're allowed to speak in lectures, that's brilliant, because then you can access people who don't live on campus, in the types of departments and courses that aren't traditionally involved in student unions, which is another problem. For instance, the STEM courses or health sciences. There's a lot of students who, because of the nature and demands of their course, are nowhere near as tuned in to student politics, even though it can do a lot for them.
I think that's a key problem, actually, because I know voter participation, the amount of people that actually vote, is really, really low. Do you have any ideas for how that can be improved, how to make students more aware of everything YUSU actually does for them?
I think it's a bit, this is just me, obviously. I mean, there'll be people who have very different views on it, but I think you've just got to, you get one win, it starts the ball rolling and people trust you, and then they might come to you with another idea or another problem that you can work on. If you have one thing that you can say, we've done this for you, and people start to build that trust and have that faith. And in terms of campaigning on a similar level, if you want to generate interest, then you've got to be saying something. You get a lot of campaigns, it's not just a York thing, it's national. And it's not just a student union thing, it happens even in mainstream politics, really bland, vague campaign pledges that don't mean anything when you boil it down. People, my view is, people like tangibles. You see what it is, you can almost measure it and picture it, and then you get that sense of buy-in then. So people shouldn't be afraid to say what they think. When I ran, it wasn't like an anti-YUSU campaign, but it was certainly saying nobody knows who the president is, nobody knows what the union's doing, you're all paying enough money, and we've got a massive opportunity with the fees increase to improve things here.
Yeah, I'm hoping that things will improve, because obviously people are much more aware of what YUSU are doing this year in terms of how they're trying to make the uni make some changes in terms of what they're offering in the pandemic. But yeah, thank you for that. I think that's us done, actually. I've gone through all my questions. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add?
Just a little thing, really. I should say that the things I've said are going back to what it was like then, and I know that YUSU's come on in leaps and bounds since, and it does deserve credit for that. But I just encourage people to give it a go, back themselves. You know, you can change lives with this. Student unions are more than just events companies and sort of society administrators. There are things out there that can make thousands of students' lives easier, better, more successful, and student unions are the vehicle to do that. So, you know, all the best to everyone that puts in, you know, and I hope the student media enjoy covering it. It's always one of the highlights. The coverage was always brilliant and quite intense. Yeah, I just, you know, wish you and everyone else involved all the best, and thanks for talking to me, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out your very busy day.
It's all right. Take care of yourself.